there was actually I was watching a podcast about this recently and talking about how since kind of religion stopped being like a mainstream thing, people have been looking for other ways to find like morality, and it's there's no longer that kind of one standard morality that everyone follows, and or that most people in different countries would then follow. So it makes it harder to be on the same page with a lot of things. But at the end of the day, most people just want everyone to get on, and
Mm.
so it's just about trying to find the similarities among the differences and get on as well as we can.
No,
really,
yeah.
until we find another clear-cut morality that most people agree with.
Yeah, I think the kind of end of religion as a popular
Belief system.
belief system, yeah. It has left a massive hole for the generation now coming forward, probably even generations before us.
Yeah.
Because you kind of miss, you don't have a purpose in a way, whereas I think religion was kind of a false purpose, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because it was kind of like I used to think religion was like stupid and just completely irrelevant, but after I've done some reading especially after reading Jordan Peterson's book,
I do want to read that. Actually.
yeah, that's really good. He's kind of he's I think he's religious. I think he goes to church, and he kind of paints in this new picture, which kind of like made sense to me, because he kind of sees it as this kind of archetype of like the human experience, which makes so much sense. And I can see why it had such an appeal, because it gave someone a purpose for their life, and obviously they read about Jesus suffering, and then because life is all about just suffering and trying to make the best out of the situation we have.
Yeah.
And obviously reading about Jesus and how he overcame it, it's like something to relate to, and you can get through your day like knowing that, and without kind of these stories, and these young people don't have anything to kind of relate to. They're kind of a bit lost, and they can't. What needs to happen is they need to find their own kind of purpose, like their own God to worship in a way.
And thus Jordan Peterson was given to us. No.
I don't mean like a proper figure. I mean like if you want to be, say you want to be like a musician or something, your God would be kind of your goal to like strive for. That's kind of your heaven, the thing to go towards, like being a professional musician. And then you need to kind of paint a hell as well for yourself to avoid. That's like, I don't know, turn into drugs and then becoming homeless. Like you need to like.
Well, a lot of musicians do both.
Yeah.
Not the homeless part, but the drugs part.
That's the thing. You need to kind of define where you want to be and define where you don't want to be, and kind of avoid one and strive for the other. And it kind of gives your life that kind of meaning, and it makes the suffering kind of worthwhile if you know where you're going, if you're going towards, which I think a lot of people these days don't, and they're lost. And
well, I think what religion really did was it made people both kind of virtuous and like want to be good while being like self-serving in a way, so like they'd be like, if you follow the rules of the Bible and you believe in that, then you're helping yourself to get into heaven. So it's just all humans are kind of self-serving in a way. They're not usually going to do something that isn't in line with what they want and getting what they want. And so it's actually quite a smart way of making people not strive for having as much and having the best life they can at the detriment to others, but also thinking that they were. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the rules were made. Well, the rules in the Bible were made because after it's from years and years and years of human experience, and they're just rules that kind of make sense.
Yeah.
If you think about them, like
don't kill people.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of ingrained into us how we should act in order to survive, because following these rules kind of builds a kind of community that functions really well, and
Yeah.
that's the whole reason it's there. It's like no man just sat down and wrote the Bible and
No.
wrote these rules.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't completely barbaric
Mm.
until the Bible was written. I think it's obviously a gradual process from being these barbaric cavemen to what we are today.
Well, there was a talk I was listening to even just a couple of days ago by do you know Stefan Molyneux? I think
No,
so he
don't
does
think
like
so.
interviews with he's like a kind of YouTube philosopher, so he kind of does he's got a philosophy channel online. It's Free Domain Radio, I think it's called, and so he does a lot of talks with, like, he'll get kind of similar to Joe Rogan. He'll get people on the show and talk to them for hours, and it just time goes by. Like, even for them, they'll get to the end and be like, it's been 3 hours.
Yeah.
Wow. He was talking about the 10 Commandments, and how actually when he first heard them, he saw them as being quite kind of restrictive and negative, but there's a lot of leeway within them. So it's like, rather than saying, do this, do that, it's saying, just, don't do these 10 things, and the rest is up to you, and you do what you want. And it's, if you think about it from that perspective, and a lot of the rules kind of do make sense and are almost self-evident, but
Yeah. It wasn't the Ten Commandments from like the Old Testament, which is I think it was a stricter form. It was like God was kind of this punisher. But the New Testament obviously paints him as more of this benevolent figure that's more forgiving than the Old Testament God.
He was
which
God too.
Yeah, which just kind of shows you a clear distinction from what humans had before. Like, and you can kind of tell it's kind of like this mythological kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think religion has just kind of been a bit twisted into being fundamentally Christian, where you believe that Adam and Eve were two.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous with the science we have these days that you actually believe that. So one of my friends who's Christian, I asked him, like, I was like, oh, do you actually believe Adam and Eve were on this earth? And he was like, yeah. I was like shocked, because like I assumed he was this Christian that just was like devout and going to church, but wasn't a fundamental, and it kind of shocked me a little bit.
Well, I guess there's a lot of the stories in there that if you don't take them word for word, they can actually like not be complete nonsense.
No, definitely. That's the whole reason it's the best-selling book of all time.
Yeah. Well, because there was I think there was this one story. Remember I don't know the names of the people in it, but there's one story where they got to this like group of people got to a river, and like they parted ways. I think Jesus was with them, and him
Moses,
that's the one.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about that is I was reading about it, and there was actually a river in that area that will every so often, for whatever reason, with the levels, there will actually be a parting of ways, like for a certain amount of time. And so it's interesting to see how it could actually be a true story, but it's obviously not word for word, but there's truth to it, and it's brought us this far, and now we can kind of move on and look for the third testament. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think the new form is television and film.
Yeah,
really, films, the medium people go to, they look for, you walk into a cinema or on TV now, but I think the cinema was more of an experience where you look on a screen and you look for someone to identify with and go through what's known as the hero's journey with, and the character obviously goes through this difficult period. They struggle where life throws everything at them, and then they reach a point where they kind of get what they want, but they then have to like kind of take action and then come out of this kind of underworld in this like kind of circle thing. It's this very interesting thing by, I think Joseph Campbell did this hero's journey thing, which makes, and it applies to many television shows and films you see. It's the same thing over and over again, which you start to notice once you understand it, and it's
kind of ruins films in a way.
It does in a way, but then it makes you kind of understand it, and I don't know. I find it very interesting now. I know of that, and
Mm.
I try and spot it now in films, and it's obviously done very straightforward in some commercial films, like the obvious films where it's just follow it step by step, and kind of you can see each point of the circle. But then there are other films that kind of still do it, but they do it in a more subtle way, and it's all very interesting. I think that's what people have to look to now is films, and we just need people creating better films than
Yeah.
I guess what we have.